Hey, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. On Sunday, we looked at how to buy an Ottoman army, and I must confess, despite upping the amount we had to spend, it still was not a huge army. Luckily, buying armies to face them doesn't have to be as pricey. I'm not going to go into a purchase-by-purchase recommendation like I do normally for the how to buy. This is more of sort of general principles about how you can tool your army to look like it's ready for the Middle Eastern theatre. Now, first and foremost, before we get started, this video may run over 10 minutes, but largely it's because I'm going to over-egg this particular pudding. We're going to be talking more about rice pudding later. If you want to set a battle in the Middle East, or in Egypt, or wherever, and you don't have the models for it, who cares? Honestly, if all you've got is 15 Frenchmen, and you want to redo the Battle of Alexandria, go large. It matters not a jot. My guys have worn their bicorns from the sands of Egypt to the mud of Waterloo. They've never rolled any worse for it. They've never looked less cool on the tabletop, and I've never had less fun just because they were wearing the wrong headgear or their uniform, their cuffs are the wrong colour or something like that. If you want to do a battle that's set in the Middle East and you've only got like the figures from somewhere else, who cares? Just do it anyway. The worst game you ever have is always going to be better than not having a game. So first and foremost, and I cannot stress this enough, this video is not, if you want to play in the Middle East game scenario, then you must use these figures. I'm not saying that at all. Nothing could be further from the truth. However, if you and your group, for argument's sake, wanted to have a campaign set in Egypt or in India or something like that, and you wanted to Orientalize, I'm going to use that term, your army a little bit, then these are just some suggestions that you could do that. But I would also say as well, with maybe one exception, and we'll get to that shortly, you can also use these figures for the vast majority of the case if you want to fight back a European battle as well. So the four main enemies that fought the Ottomans or fought in the Middle East were the Austrians and the Russians, the French and the British. So they either fought against them or occasionally fought with them in the case of the latter two. We're going to look at the Austrians and the Russians first, because they are probably the simplest. And that is, if you have a Russian army, then you have a Russian army that fought the Ottomans. If you have an Austrian one, the same. Now, you could say, well, it's different for the Russians. If my guys have got the Kiewa, if they're the 1812 Russians, then they're different to the ones who fought the Russians in the Russo-Ottoman War. Sorry, the ones who fought the Ottomans in the Russo-Ottoman War. Yeah, okay, they are different, but by the same token, who cares? If we played Austerlitz the other week, you've seen, or an Austerlitz era scenario, 1805. You've seen it on the channel. I used Kiewa wearing Russians and Shaco wearing Austrians because who cares? As long as you've got the figures on the table, as long as you're enjoying it, that's the important thing. That said, if you do have Austerlitz era Austro-Russian armies, then you have perfect armies ideal for it. You might perhaps want to up the number of Grenzer that you've got in an Austrian army. Maybe don't use the Landwehr, because they obviously didn't have them then. There's a couple of Russian units as well, the expanded ones, stuff like the Finnish Guard Infantry and things like that. So leave those out, but by and large, you don't really need to change anything in an Austrian or a Russian army to fight against the Ottomans, with the maybe minor exception of just adding in a couple of more battalions of Grenzer, which, let's be honest, that's never going to be a bad thing anyway. So with those bottomed off, because we don't need to worry about them, we'll go to the British. Now, the British are an interesting one because they kind of straddle the different approaches. Nothing really needs to change, and it's a completely different army. The British are kind of half and half. Now, the main changes that the British had for fighting in Egypt in particular, India as well, but we're going to be mostly concentrating on Egypt here, were their headwear? Blimey, I've been far too Sheffield for far too long now, haven't I? The main difference, good lord, the main differences was in their headdress. So when I talk about headdress, I mean the hats that they wore. There's like 5 different types. So the first type is the stovepipe Shako. So if you have a Peninsular War army, then you've got the Shakos that they wore in Egypt. Again, I mean, does it really matter? Not really. But if you want to be accurate, then you've got the right Shakos there. You should also have the officers in bicorns as well, so that's absolutely fine. That is a good one. The next one, and the next most common one, I guess, would be what's called a round hat. Now, sometimes I've heard it referred to as a Mother Shipton hat, but I think they're slightly different. A round hat. It looks a little bit like a top hat, but it's straight brimmed. And this was worn by the Marines, by and large. And it was the tropical headdress, effectively. So, again, it would be worn in the Caribbean, in South Africa, India, places. Did they have colonies in South Africa by then? I don't think they did. But it would have been worn in India, particularly. Places like that. Now, the Perrys do sets of infantry wearing round hats. They're very nice. But if your main line infantry is going to be all metal, as we saw with the Ottoman army, how to buy, that really does add up really fast. It can get very, very expensive. So a top tip there is to head over to Victrix. Hey, see what I did there? Oh, sorry, no, I'm so excited about that joke. I got it wrong. Don't head over to Victrix. Head over to Brigade Games. Now, that's an American company, so it may end up being quite expensive anyway, to be honest, but we'll get to that in a second. Because they sell sets of round hats. They sell them for the Marines, but these are specifically designed to match Victrix bodies. That's why I got confused earlier on with the Victrix. I know that they were specifically designed to fit Victrix bodies because they used to be made by Victrix. I think they've sold all their metal production to Brigade Games, and they now do them, because they used to do some Metal Command as well. You might even still be able to get some of the Command. Anyway, they're now available from Brigade Games, just the heads, or you can order them with some NCOs and things like that as well. They're really, really nice. I've got 3 sets of them that are ready to go. But that said, they may also fit the Perry bodies as well. They won't fit Warlord because they don't have a collar. It's just the head and hat. Whereas the Perrys, it's the head, hat, and collar that glue into the the top of the shoulders. So, I mean, no one system is better than the others. In fact, I actually think having the collar attached to the head is probably the best way to go, because it makes painting the collar much easier. But in this case, they don't have collars, so you're either going to have to make them if you go with Warlord, or if you do what I would do, test them out on some Perrys. I haven't done it yet, but you can try that out for yourself. They definitely, 1,000% do fit Victrix, though, because that's what they were designed for. There's another kind of round hat as well, and that was for Grenadiers. Now, this is quite weird. It's like a round hat with a plume that goes from ear to ear. It's a transverse crest. It goes from ear to ear. And it's like a giant furry caterpillar is just like dead on top of the hat. It doesn't look great at all, but you can make that quite easily. Yeah, they don't come with them because the Marines didn't have them, and don't forget the hats from Victrix are designed for the Marines. So you might be able to get them from the Perrys, or just do what I'm going to do and just green stuff it on the top. Super simple. Could not be easier to do. It's literally just a sausage of green stuff. Do it over the hat. Job done. And there's 3 more hat types. See, I told you it was all about the hats for the British. There's 3 more hat types. Now, the first one is it's like a low bearskin. It's a bit weird. It's a Fusilier cap, it's called. Anyone who knows anything about the American War of Independence, it's the Grenadier hats they wore there. They sort of go up to a point at the front. They're a bit weird. They're cool, though. Only one of the regiments wore those in Egypt. But, you know, if you want to get those Grenadiers, then I would probably recommend you just buy the Perry's one. Because although I say the costs do add up, you only want 1 pack of those, and that's going to be more than enough for the Grenadier Company of, I think it was the 46th. Don't quote me on that one. I think it was the 46th Infantry Regiment of Foot. Probably wasn't. It was probably like the 44th or something. It was definitely the 40-something, and they wore these Fusilier caps. There's another kind of Grenadier hat as well. Now, this one I've never seen before, and I've never seen it done on anyone else either. It's really weird. It's like a French Old Guard one, but cut off halfway down. Or it also looks a little bit like a Busby, but taller. It kind of, the thing it reminds me most of is like a Russian, like a furry Russian hat. It's super, super weird. I've never seen them before in my life. It's like a double height coonskin cap. It's mega weird. It's on the Berry's website anyway. That's for a specific regiment as well. I can't remember which one it is. But if you want to get those guys and check out the weirdo hat, then pop onto the website and have a look at that one. The fifth and final headwear that they wore was, of course, my favourite headgear, the mighty Tarleton helmet. Now, we've spoke millions of times we've talked about how to get hold of tarletans, and they're mainly from the British Light Dragoons. Now, if you do get some British Light Dragoons for use in Egypt, there's a good chance they would have worn it's like a Grecian helmet. It looks a little bit like a French Dragoon helmet, a little bit. They were actually made out of tin, and they were the tropical headdress for British Light Dragoons. So if you've got a box of Light Dragoons, they should really be wearing those tin helmets, and that frees up the tarletans for your infantry. Again, you're probably going to need 2 boxes of them, which is a little bit much for the cavalry in Egypt, but yeah, it'll do you. Now, the Perrys also have you covered with cavalry. They do definitely have Mother Shipton hats. They're sort of a bit like, they're a little bit like witch hunter hats, but not quite. If you know what I mean, the big sort of buckle ones. But not really. That's kind of a very rough thing of what they look like. Now, they've got one unit which I don't have as of yet. It's definitely on the to buy list. They had 2 regiments of these landed in Egypt, and they are the Sepoys. They're specifically Bombay Sepoys. Now, these guys look awesome. They just look so cool. They've either got sandals on or barefoot, and they've got these tighty whities on. These shorts leave absolutely nothing to the imagination. And they've got these big turbans on as well. They're super cool. I don't own any yet, but I definitely will be. Their grenadiers, turbans in particular, are mightily impressive. Honestly, for the Brits in Egypt, it's actually a very complete range, considering it's the Perrys, and they are known to like going off on their tangents, and it's such a minor theatre. It's really good range. They've also got de Watteville's Swiss as well. Yeah, they certainly fought in Italy. I think they may have fought in the Mediterranean as well. So, yeah, definitely worth checking those out if you fancy it. There's another manufacturer as well called AW Miniatures. They do a really nice range as well. It's more designed for Wellington's time in India and, things like the Battle of Assaye in 1803. But, there's some nice stuff there as well, including a couple of units that the Perrys don't provide, which includes an elephant limber. I don't know if they use those in Egypt or not. Probably not, but they're pretty cool. And they also had a different type of sepoy as well. Sepoys in what's called a sundial turban, which is particularly funky as well. So check those out if that's the kind of thing that interests you. Now, we've gone over time already, so forget it. We may as well just crack on, because we're going to stick with the Perrys, and we're going to talk about the French in Egypt range. Now, this, again, is a full-on range. It's got everything that you're going to need. It's got hussars, it's got artillery, it's got everything that you could wish for. The main thing are the infantry. Now, the infantry in this period had what's called the Kleber Ordnance, which is quite different from their other uniforms. Their jacket is tailless. It's quite short. It's very similar to the late infantry jackets, actually. And their helmets, they had these like weird sort of... They look a little bit like show jumping helmets. They're quite strange, but they had those helmets on as well. They are really nice, but as with the British, if you want to buy a full army of them, it's going to get quite expensive. So, Victrix has got our back on this again. I'm going to recommend the 1805, I think it's 1805 to 1807, 1809, something like that. The early Victrix French infantry in the bicorns. That's the one I'm going to go for. Now, I have read accounts that they actually did wear the bicorns in Egypt. The helmets and stuff shall we say, they got lost very quickly. When you're marching through the desert and you want to reduce weight, a hat with a big brim is pretty handy. A helmet, not so much. Of course, when the Mamelukes are trying to cut your head off, it's probably better to have a helmet. But that happened far less often than marching through the desert did. So, I would be tempted, though, just to mix in the odd Kleber helmet in with the bicorns. Maybe like one on a base or something like that. If you've got a unit of 36 dudes, a pack with Kleber ordnance could work, I think. Yes, 2 at the most on a base. I wouldn't go any more than that. The rest of the unit will be the Victrix plastics and garnished to taste. The odd command here and there can be in the Kleber ordnance as well. That's about as far as I go, to be honest. For cavalry, they did the hussars and dragoons. In particular, they did have different uniforms to the ones that we get in the plastic box set. Honestly, not that different, though. I probably wouldn't worry too much about it. I'd probably just go for them as they are. Incidentally, the same with the Battle of Marengo, if you want to do 1800. I'd probably just stick with the same as they are, to be honest. The uniform differences were very, very minor. Now that said, they do a pack that's called FE, so Foxtrot Echo, FE12, 7th Biz Hussar Command Galloping, 1800 to 1801 uniform. That set I'm going to single out in particular because it is absolutely gorgeous. I love the 3 models in that cavalry set are absolutely stunning. They're one of my favourite sets from the Perrys. So I definitely would buy that set, maybe as a brigade command, something like that. But they are absolutely gorgeous figures. Now, so far, particularly with the French, you can use most of them back in Europe. And same with the British as well. You can give guys round hats. They can be serving in Italy in particular. We just mentioned the Battle of Maida. They could quite easily have worn round hats there. Or maybe even in the Peninsula. The one unit that I would suggest you probably can't use in a European theatre, although it would be cool, are the Dromedary Corps, the French Dromedary Corps. Who does not love these guys? I tell you who definitely does love those guys, the artists at the time. There's probably more, like, if you were to compare the paintings per head of people they were painting, they're probably one of the most painted units in history. There weren't that many of them, but they looked absolutely awesome in light sky blue and red, like, baggy trousers, very similar to LaSalle wore, with their hats askew on these weird camels. Just, they're such a cool unit. The Perrys do them. I've recently bought 2 packs of them. I'm painting them up at the moment. They're absolutely gorgeous models. Great. Love them. If you're going to do the French in Egypt, to be honest, if you want to do the French in Egypt, and you've only got the, Jerome Bonaparte's corps from Quatre Bras, if that's all you've got, you take that army with their tricolours and their battle honours for Ulm and Austerlitz and all that stuff, you get those guys, put them on a table, stick a unit of Dromedary Corps next to them, instantly everyone's like, you're in Egypt. So that's how iconic that unit is. And this one I'm talking about, Orientalising your army. Get that one unit and suddenly that army looks like it's in position, in place for a campaign in Egypt. Now, the one thing that's missing mostly for the French rather in the Egyptian campaign, the Perrys don't do him yet. I'm sure they will. Is your main man, your boy, General Bonaparte. The Perrys don't do a General Bonaparte model. They do Emperor Bonaparte. They don't do a General Bonaparte. So I'm going to do this as a sub video. I may even clip this and do it as a separate video. Let me know if in fact, no, I am going to clip it and do it as a separate video. So this is going to be a quick guide to companies that make a General Bonaparte. Now, my favourite, the one that I'm not yet painted up, but it certainly will be pride of place on my shelf, is from the Giants in Miniature range from Wargames Illustrated. Now, he was limited edition. I don't know if he's still available. If he is available from North Star. So North Star is where you get the Giants in Miniatures selection from. I've got quite a few of their minis. They're very, very nice. He's a little bit taller than 28mm. He's probably 30-32mm. But you know what? When you're doing your officers, your senior commanders, your General Bonapartes, you want them to be like, oh, I guess with Napoleon, you probably want to use a 15mm figure, don't you? I'm joking. He wasn't really short. That's a joke. It's a meme. Don't worry about it. So, I'm going to get so much hate mail for that. So, yes, he was a limited edition model. If he is still available, then he's great. Go for him. Brigade Games do a really nice set. Now, you can either buy these guys individually, or you can do what I did and buy them as a set. You can get one on foot, one on a horse, and one on a camel. The camel one's really nice. It's based on the Jean-Léon Gérôme painting, where he's like being led towards the viewer out of the painting. There's like a little an Egyptian sort of leading the horse with him. It's leading the camel, with him. That's really nice as well. That's a great set. Trent Miniatures. They're a UK company. They do a General Bonaparte on horse. He's a little chunky, shall we say. He's obviously enjoying the high life there. And there's another company, CP Models. Now, I thought I'd never heard of these guys, but it turns out I've actually bought this set. So I must have come across them at some point. CP Models, they do a really nice Napoleon on foot. Or, again, you can buy him either individually or the set that I apparently have bought, where he comes with Generals Kleber and Desailly, and there's a couple of other ones as well. I thought it was Dansout, but it's not. I'm not sure who the other two are, but he comes in a set of 5 anyway. So that's it. Those are the ways that you can Orientalize your armies. You only need 1 or 2 of these units in your army, and suddenly you've got an army that is ready and willing to either fight its way to India or maybe defend India from the ravages of the Revolution, or maybe to free the Balkans from the Ottoman yoke. All these different units that you can just add just to make your armies look that little bit different. You don't have to go all out. If you've got an 1815 army, as I say, you've got an 1815 army, you add a unit of Dromedary Corps to it, or you add a unit of Sepoys to it, or something like that, then instantly people know we're not in Kansas anymore. We are in a different theatre of operations. That's it, ladies and gents. Thank you for listening. This went on a lot longer than I like the Monday video too, more than double the length. But thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time.